Welcome back to the S&T podcast. This weekend we have the Big 12 championship in a rematch between the number 4 Texas Tech Red Raiders going up against the number 11 BYU Cougars. So, these two teams met earlier in the regular season. Texas Tech dominated BYU in this game. It was not very close at all. Well, these two teams won the rest of their games, so they meet again in Arlington this weekend for the Big 12 championship. Now, there are stakes on both sides of this game, and we will get deeper into that. But BYU and Texas Tech are both looking to make the playoff this season. If Texas Tech wins, they're in, of course, and we'll see what happens with BYU. But if BYU gets them in the second meeting, both of these teams are going to make the playoff. We'll get deeper into that, but Tom, let the people know what's going on in this matchup right here.
Yeah, basically, yeah, you covered the gist of it there, where it's BYU wins and they're in. Obviously, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is in either way, but in my opinion, it's kind of crazy what the College Football Playoff Committee has done to BYU. I think that we're it always happens at the end of the year where they pull the double standard kind of BS, where BYU's 11-1, right? And all of a sudden we're talking about, it's like Texas A&M 11-1, they're number 7. Ole Miss 11-1, they're number 6, but they're not even in there. Oregon 11-1, number 5. None of those teams are in their conference championship. And BYU, their only loss being 11-1 is to Texas Tech, who's ranked number 4. Now, again, like I said, double standards are kind of crazy, where Texas Tech lost to Arizona State. So again, it's like the committee, to me, they made these rankings the way they did on purpose, because I think they want Texas Tech to beat BYU so they can kick BYU out, because BYU's at number 11. Even though you have 3 teams in front of BYU who are 10-2. Like, it to me, I just hope that they make a standard and stick to it. But yeah, like Cezanne said in the intro, if BYU wins, even more chaos ensues, because you can't drop Texas Tech, which again, I still think it's crazy how you have Texas Tech, who is 11-1, and then they're at number 4, and BYU's at number 11, and they're 11-1, but they only lost to Texas Tech, who's number 4. So I don't quite understand the playoff committee's exact reasoning for why BYU is so low. The only thing I can think of is because they want to kick BYU out of the playoffs if Texas Tech beats them, which to me is going to be insane. Because if you hold that standard, then if Alabama loses to Georgia, you have to kick Alabama out. And then but then it's like, at the same time, the committee has come out and said that the conference championship doesn't really matter. Now, maybe I think what they should have said was the Big Ten conference championship doesn't really matter, because I think the Big 12 conference championship matters, the SEC conference championship matters, and definitely the ACC conference championship matters. And then we'll see. We're talking about, like, what if the group of 5 teams, like, what if Memphis loses their conference championship, and what if James Madison loses their conference championship, and what if North Texas loses their conference championship? Like, what do we talk? Like, what if all of those teams lose? What group of 5 team deserves to be in? Like this, it just, the different scenarios that could happen over this weekend are insane. But back to Texas Tech BYU, it's like, all I'm saying is you have to keep the same energy towards all conferences, especially the Power Four. Like if you're gonna tell me that Virginia makes it because they win the ACC, okay, that's fine. But you can't kick BYU out because they lose the Big 12. The only team they've lost to is the number 14. Again, well, like, I could keep repeating myself over and over again. Like, And then at the same time, it's like if you're like for example, 5 through 8, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, they have nothing to worry about. They literally have nothing to worry about. And then even like 1 and 2, Ohio State, Indiana, they have nothing to worry about. They're both undefeated. They're going to make the playoffs. It's like, and I guess Georgia really 1 through 8 doesn't really matter. But then I just want everybody to keep the same energy. If Alabama and BYU both lose, if BYU's out, Alabama needs to be out, and we need to put. And then I don't know. I don't know if you put Vanderbilt in. There's too much. I'm spinning out. I'm spiraling out right now, and I'm gonna let Saison finish this out because even just thinking about all these different scenarios and with Miami, Texas, Vanderbilt, I can't. Every video we go down the same rabbit hole. So Saison, just take it away.
Man, now you know how I felt on the on the other call when I was thinking so hard that I lost track of thought of what I was even saying because I was like, there's just so many different scenarios and everything just going on. Okay, so let me put it like this: the Big 12 championship game might be, other than the ACC championship game, it might be the most important championship game this weekend because two reasons. BYU basically is going to control how the playoff finishes out this season. If BYU wins, they are in automatically, qualifier. They won the Big 12 title, they're in. So in that case, Texas Tech is not going to fall out of the top 12. I don't think, and I've heard everybody else talk about it. They said they don't think Texas Tech will fall out. So even though they might bump down a few spots, they're still going to be in the playoffs. So that means the Big 12 is going to get in two teams in that case. In that case, Notre Dame is out because the number 11 seed and the number 12 seed are going to be taken by either ACC in group of six or two group of sixes, and we'll talk about that later. But 11 and 12 are gone for other less deserving teams. So the cutoff is at 10. Notre Dame is at 10 right now after being bumped down in the playoff rankings on Tuesday. If BYU wins and they're at 11, that means they have to come up into the top 10. Texas Tech is not falling out of the top 10, which means Notre Dame is going to be the odd man out. So BYU can make it real simple for the committee and everybody else this weekend if they win this game because Notre Dame is out. That means everybody else behind them is also out. So we don't have much to talk about in that case. Notre Dame is going to be real mad, but no one else is going to care. So I wouldn't mind seeing that scenario. On the other hand, if BYU loses, oh my goodness, there's just so many different scenarios that could happen here. So let's just get into it. BYU would have a second loss. Now, if BYU loses, they're going to be the most angry fan base in America because the committee has already flirted at the possibility that they're going to be hypocritical this season. They're going to say, "Oh, we're not going to punish Indiana or Ohio State for losing their title game. We're not going to punish Bama or Georgia for losing their title game, but we are going to punish BYU for losing their title game, even though they only lost to the same team twice." We're going to punish
And
for losing it.
and also you have to imagine they're going to reward Virginia for their conference win, and it and but not reward Duke for their conference. You know what I mean? Like they've already established, like you said, like guidelines, like just also for the ACC, where it's like, oh, if Virginia wins the ACC, they're in. But if Duke wins, we're gonna take a second group of 5 team. Like, what are you talking about? Like, anyway, I'll let you finish. But yeah, it's like like you said, they've established that they are going to be hypocritical and case by case with all of the conference championships. But anyway, yeah, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
No, you're right, Tom. Because like you said, you have to keep the same energy. How come you can't drop Alabama out if they lose a third game, but you're gonna drop out BYU if they lose a second game to the same team, a top 4 team at that? Bama lost to Florida State. Like this, you have to keep the same consistency, or else there's so many questions like the ones we're having right now. How can you say that if BYU loses this weekend that they're out? How? But Bama's not out if they lose. Okay, so let me get back to it. So let's say BYU loses again, right? The committee is already kind of saying that they are willing to drop them out if they lose again. Why? Well, BYU's ranked below Notre Dame right now. Notre Dame doesn't play in the conference. They don't have another game to play. There's teams above them that don't play any other games, but BYU does. So they lose another game. That means if they get bumped out, that means that's another spot. And that's going to become either Notre Dame, Miami, or Texas, I guess, at this point, because they put Texas above Vandy. Because once again, the 11 and 12 seeds are gone. The 11 and 12 seeds don't exist because they belong to ACC Group of Six. So they don't exist. That number 10 spot, if BYU loses, then that means Miami up a spot before, or I mean, there won't be any more rankings before the selection Sunday, but that means that BYU is going to fall down. That means Miami's right below Notre Dame. And I didn't want to talk about it before, and I want to save it a little bit for future episodes. But I do believe that the committee is kind of setting up that on selection Sunday, if BYU loses, there will be a conversation between Notre Dame and Miami. Why? Well, because before their whole excuse for why is Notre Dame above Miami was because they're not closely ranked to each other. Notre Dame was like number 7 or number 8, and Miami was like 17 after they lost to excuse me, after they lost to SMU or whatever. Now they're literally only two.
And NC State, but yeah.
Yeah, they lost to
And SMU, yeah.
Miami lost
Yeah.
to SMU and Louisville.
I thought they lost to. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of a different team, but I thought, yeah.
Georgia Tech lost to NC State.
Oh, that's right. Yes, yep. Sorry, yep. You're right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry.
If we get to that last Saturday, if we get to Saturday and BYU loses and Miami and Notre Dame are right next to each other, you cannot use the excuse that they're not closely ranked anymore. Well, they're right next to each other now. So what is the excuse for Notre Dame being above Miami? And I saw a graphic because I was watching the selection show last night. I saw a graphic between Notre Dame and Miami. They had the strength of record, strength of schedule, FPI, all that good stuff, right? All the analytics. They were basically equal for Miami and Notre Dame. There was like 3 and 6, 45 and 44, 22 and 23. Like they were right next to each other. So in that case, well, my mind, a rational football fan's mind goes into, well, if I'm deciding between these two teams, did they play? And
yeah, but then at the same time, like going back to like BYU Texas Tech. Well, it's like, well, if BYU loses, and it's like BYU is still 11-2, while Notre Dame and Miami are still both 10-2, and they don't even get to play in a conference championship, but BYU does, and the committee's already established. They've already said like, hey, you should not be punished for losing a conference championship. Well, then, like, it's kind of convenient that you put BYU at 11, even though they're 11-1.
right.
I don't know.
Based on your logic, BYU should be in win or lose. Win or lose, BYU should be in. And because the committee doesn't have that same logic, we're having to talk about if BYU loses, there's going to be a spot that Notre Dame currently holds, but how could you give them that spot over a team that they lost to that is now ranked right behind them? So I'll leave it at this, and I'll swing it back over to you. I do believe at this point now, and I agree with it. Actually, because I know I sound like I don't agree with this part, but I do agree with this part. If we get to Sunday and BYU lost to Texas Tech again, I do believe the committee will bump out Notre Dame and put Miami in over them. Why? Goes back to all the analytics. They're all equal between the two teams. And then, well, head to head has to matter. It has to matter. It just has to. Now, let's say Notre Dame I don't even know what the difference. Let's say Notre Dame was 11, right? And their only one loss was to Miami. Well, then in that case, I would probably say Notre Dame deserves to be in. Notre Dame has the same record as Miami. They both finished 10-2. They're both not playing this weekend, and Miami beat them. All other things equal, how can you put Notre Dame in over Miami? And I think if they don't, if BYU loses and don't make the switch between Miami and Notre Dame, it will be the biggest controversy that's happened with the playoff thus far. It will top Florida State left out, because how do you
Yeah.
put Miami out and put Notre Dame in over them? That will be the that will just be the crutch of the playoff. And there will be so many mad people, and they will have to fix it again this year. I think they will anyway. I think they're going to make some adjustments, but they're going to have to fix it. There's no way. Tom,
So
take it away, Tom.
I was gonna say, let me play a little devil's advocate here. So, um, I think what they're looking at, which is it's kind of it's okay, so like I don't even know how to explain it I necessarily, but I'm gonna try. So Notre Dame's only two losses were to number 12 Miami and currently number 7 Texas A&M. So I think they're giving Notre Dame more grace in their losses, and they're giving them more benefit of the doubt in their wins, their dominant wins over not very good teams.
Real quick,
Um,
quick. I know what you're going to say. And yes, that is true. They barely lost to Miami. They barely lost to A&M. They were in the first two games. I get that. At the end of
right.
Miami lost to a 9-3 SMU, who finished 9-3, and Louisville finished 8-4. So it's not like those teams are bad. You know what I mean? And I know the point you were going to make, and I just want to say that neither SMU nor
Yeah.
Louisville were bad.
You wanted
So
you wanted to jump ahead yeah, and yes, but yeah, no, that's a fair response, but I'm just playing devil's advocate for the committee here and saying they're looking at Miami's two losses as being worse than Notre Dame's two losses, which again, it's like we're pinching pennies, we're playing, like it's playing patty cake. It's like I don't know because it's like okay, you want to count Notre Dame's loss to Miami as a good loss, but then you want to put Miami behind Notre Dame with the same record doesn't really make any sense to me. But like I said, I'm just playing devil's advocate for Notre Dame, where Notre Dame can say, "Well, we lost to Texas A&M, who finished 11-1, and we lost to Miami, who finished 10-2." But at the same time, it's like, well, if you and Miami are both 10-2, that's you have the head-to-head, so you know who the better team is, and BYU is just sandwiched in the middle there, which, like I said, I feel like they put BYU at 11 on purpose so that they could be like, well, they were already number 11, so we just decided, it's like, well, they dropped two spots because we have to include blah, 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 blah. Just which to me is insane because if we're gonna hold a standard here, well, it's like, well, BYU only lost to the number 4 team in the country, but you have Texas A&M who's 11-1, and they lost to their losses to number 13. Other than that, they haven't beaten any currently ranked teams. It's like, well, why isn't BYU at 7? And or at least 8, because no disrespect to Oklahoma, but it's like Oklahoma's 10-2, like Alabama's 10-2, Notre Dame 10-2. I just don't understand the logic. Like I think what's very frustrating, and this is the last thing I'll say. What's extremely frustrating about the last rankings that just came out is because all year up until this week they've held a standard. They said, well, if you like Texas is a perfect example. They're at number 13, but they have 3 losses. And so it's like they're on the bubble. But then you have Vanderbilt at 10-2 right behind them. And then you also have the 11-1 BYU. Like they completely went from this is the standard, this is what you need, like, this is what's required to be top 10, top 5, top et cetera, et cetera. And then this week they just kind of flipped it upside down and they're like, actually, none of that really matters. So, um, and then yeah, just the like the statement of like conference championships aren't going to matter. But then at the same time, it kind of is because you put BYU at 11. So I don't know. Anyway, that started off with BYU Texas Tech and got into the whole playoff mess. But yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's all I got to say about that.
good stuff there, Tom. Good stuff. And let me just end it right here with this last point. Uh, I let me go back to the predictions. So I do think Texas Tech is going to take care of BYU again this weekend. I do think it might be a close one, but I think the Red Raiders will find a way to win. With that being said, I do believe BYU will unfortunately fall out or no fall down a couple spots for losing that game. We're going to get to Sunday, and I think the committee is going to put Miami in. I think they'll do it if BYU loses. Now, if BYU wins, like I said before, none of it matters. But if BYU loses, I think Miami gets in. That's my bold prediction. BYU loses this game
Hmm.
weekend, and Miami gets in.
Okay. And Notre Dame stays in?
Notre Dame's out. Notre Dame's out.
Mhm.
Either way at this
So
point.
you think, but see, but my opinion is it's like, okay, well, why did they put Notre Dame at 10?
I think
I don't understand the last ranking. That's all.
they're trying to
It
set
gives
it up.
me a headache.
They're trying to set it up for the move. They couldn't do it before because Miami was like 5 spots behind Notre Dame. Now, if BYU loses, they're going to be right next to each other. I think they set it up on purpose that
Mm.
make that move on the final ranking. So that's my prediction. That's all I got.
See, I guess one last thing. I guess if that's what you think they were doing, why didn't they put BYU higher and put Miami at 12, right? Or excuse me, put Miami at 11 right behind Notre Dame at 10. Or just flip-flop it, put Miami or BYU at 10 and Notre Dame at 11.
Because they're going to let BYU control it. Because, like I said before, BYU has all the power in their hands. If they win, then Notre Dame is out, and Notre Dame and Miami are out, and then
Mm.
have a conversation because BYU's getting in. But if BYU loses, that means the last spot, the last at large, comes down between Notre Dame and Miami, and Texas, I guess, but Notre Dame and Miami, and the conversation has to be had at that point. That's the only thing I'm saying. I think that they allowed BYU to control it, and if BYU somehow loses, now we get to have the debate.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man.